2014 study edition of the Watchtower. The article is on page 7 as you're turning to it there. Notice the theme: worship Jehovah, the King of eternity. Does that not make your heart stir with appreciation? Our theme text is taken from 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 17. And notice this is quoted. In fact, all our scriptures starting with this study edition are from our new 2013 revised edition. There it says, "To the King of eternity be honor and glory forever." Well, on page 2 of your Watchtower, there we have the purpose of this article. Notice that it tells us there that this article will confirm that Jehovah has always been king. He's always been in control, and will reveal how he's expressed his kingship to both his heavenly and his earthly creatures. It's also going to allow us to take a look at encouraging examples from the past and see how they chose to worship Jehovah, the King of eternity. Hopefully this will touch our hearts even more to serve Jehovah with great joy. Notice the box, how would you answer? These are the main points that we'll look for in our study. Number 1, why are we drawn to Jehovah's way of ruling? The second question is, how has Jehovah always shown a loving interest in his human family? And thirdly, what moves you to worship the King of eternity? Well, taking a look at paragraph 1. You notice there it mentions this king. Perhaps you've never heard of him. Perhaps some of you have. King Sobhuza, the second of Swaziland. Now he had quite an impressive record as a king, reigning for some 61 years. Or you might think of Queen Victoria as a monarch. She was the longest serving monarch in the British Empire, reigning for some 63 years. And her granddaughter, Queen Elizabeth II, is set to break that record next September, if she lives that long and if she doesn't abdicate. You see, that is the problem with human rulers. Their rule is limited. But notice our first question: who is the King of eternity, and why is that title appropriate? Well, even the little ones among us in our audience can tell us the King of eternity is none other than Jehovah God himself. That is what is stated at 1 Timothy 1:17. There Jehovah is called the King of eternity. But notice Psalm 10 verse 16, quoted there in our first paragraph, says Jehovah is king forever and ever. So the point is that Jehovah is not limited by a short human lifespan. He has always been the universal sovereign, and he will always be the king. Doesn't that give us great comfort to know that our Heavenly Father will always be the supreme sovereign? But what is it about Jehovah's kingship that draws us to him? Well, you notice, first of all, that illustration, our opening picture there. Here we see Jehovah in his glorious throne above all creation, resplendent in glory and honor. We can hardly imagine the glory that surrounds him. That fills us with awe. But what draws us to him? Well, let's take a look at Psalm 103, verses 8 and 19. So let's turn there together. Psalm 103. Let's take a look at verse 19 first. There it says, Jehovah has firmly established his throne in the heavens, and his kingship rules over everything. And so that reminds us of our opening illustration. Jehovah is the supreme sovereign. He is supreme in power, in godship, as creator. No one can challenge him. But notice verse 8, what really draws us to him? It says, Jehovah is merciful and compassionate, slow to anger, and abundant in loyal love. Now, doesn't that draw you to Jehovah, the King of eternity? He has these beautiful fatherly qualities. And so as we go through this lesson, today's lesson, we're going to see that not only Jehovah has always been the King of eternity, but he's also our Father. And we're going to see how Jehovah has always acted as a father and how he has exercised his kingship even since rebellion in Eden? Those two questions. So let's go to paragraph 3. Notice there, the King of eternity produces a universal family. That's our subheading there. So, when we think of Jehovah producing a family, who would have been the very first member of his family? But long before the creation of the physical universe. And scientists tell us, they estimate that the physical universe is perhaps 13.7 or more billion years ago that was brought into existence. However, in the Bible, in God's inspired word, it tells us that he produced his only begotten Son. Colossians chapter 1, verse 15, there it calls him the firstborn of all creation. He is the image of the invisible God. Now, when Jehovah produced his firstborn Son, it wasn't out of loneliness, not because he lacked anything, but it was because he wanted to share the pleasure of intelligent life with others. And this firstborn Son had the joy and the privilege of assisting his Father in helping to create other spirit sons. Myriads of angels. In Psalm 103, verse 21, it calls them ministers doing God's will. So these angels, powerful in ability and intelligence, had challenging work to do. But the interesting part, in Job 38, verse 7, they're called sons of God. Yes, Jehovah didn't just view them as lowly subjects, but sons, members of his universal family. Well, the time came for Jehovah to expand his family to include humans here on the earth. And so looking at paragraph 4, we see that Jehovah, after preparing this beautiful self-sustaining planet, a jewel in the solar system and in the universe, the crowning glory of his creation, at Genesis 1, verse 26, he said, "Let us make man in our image." So humans, the first human, Adam, was created here on the earth. Now, very interesting, if we take a look at Genesis chapter 2, verses 15 and 17, we'll see that Jehovah did not want to view, again, his human creation as just mere lowly subjects, but as members of his family. Let's turn there, Genesis chapter 2, verses 15 to 17. There it says, Jehovah took the man and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and to take care of it. Jehovah also gave this command to the man, "From every tree of the garden you may eat to satisfaction, but as for the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat from it, for in the day you eat from it, you will certainly die." Well, as